Nice to meet you, Vito.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Oh wait,
Uh,
you haven't met this guy either?
No.
no, we never met.
What the hell, man? Yeah, he is a
Oh,
new kid on the block. He is a new kid on
yeah.
the block.
I
Mahdi
haven't,
Khene,
I
everybody.
haven't met anybody. Yeah.
I'm also very not particular, but I don't go to very many shows. I only go to like two or three.
I was like that for a bunch of years. I think it would be like the one show I go to every year, and I think Vito, you feel the same way. It's Baltimore Comic
Yeah.
Con,
Hmm.
right? The family show.
Yeah.
Uh, but then New York Comic Con because it's our San Diego Comic Con in New York,
Sure, sure, sure.
basically. And the thing that's cool about New York Comic Con is that it's actually two Comic Cons. There's the mainstream
Yeah.
show with the toys, and
Then there's Artist
well,
Alley.
it used to have Marvel and DC. I don't think they show up anymore, not really. And Image Comics
Right,
used to be there, but then there was the Artist Alley that was its own con,
Yeah.
you
right,
know, and that still remains to this day.
I
So,
mean, there was a year where I didn't leave Artist Alley at all. Like I was just
right,
right.
like I
It's
didn't
huge,
see the
bro.
main floor at all.
yeah,
It was my
yeah.
first time tabling this last year, and it was overwhelming. It was like I got seasick if I would look at the crowd. If like I would look up from my table with all the people, you'd start to get a little motion sickness because it was
Yeah.
like
It's funny
so
you say that
many
because I
people.
remember going to San Diego, whichever time it was, but when it started to get bananas, I
Yeah.
remember walking in the door and I looked to the left, and as far as I could see, the floor started to curve, like just
Whoa.
to the right, the same thing, and I went, "Oh my God, you can see the Earth curving." That's how big this con
That's
was,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Marty, I want to
Oh,
ask you, like
Yeah,
right off the jump, like so you've been to New York Comic Con, you've done a couple of shows.
yeah.
What's the reception been like for your bootleg stuff? Because I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? Especially like at a show like New York, like you have all the Marvel DC, like, well, DC not anymore, but like staffers there. Um,
Right.
so like, is there like any kind of pushback or anything, or people
and
No, I
before you
think
before you answer, Marty, and
yeah.
guys, this is something you said bootleg stuff. Let's give context to listeners and viewers.
let Marty
What
explain it? Because I think he's probably the
exactly?
best to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So brief history. I started making comics a couple years ago. In like 2022 is when I really got like serious about it. And and I created my own company called Zuperhero Comics, which is kind of an indie comics publisher, created my own universe and everything. And I had done maybe 6 issues of one series and 4 issues of another before I decided to do a palette cleanser. And I decided to just do a bootleg comic, which I called Bootleg Spider-Man, which was a zine. It was a 20 pager that I didn't think would do anything. And then I posted it online, and Jim Rugg uh he replied to a comment saying, I want one. And at that time, when Jim Rugg says he wants one, you oblige, you send him one, And then Ed, he also said he wanted one, and then they ended up doing an episode about it. So it blew up on Cartoonist Kayfabe, and then that put a lot of eyes on my work. But then I only did that one book, and then a year later, I did one other bootleg, which was the sequel to that one. So I've only ever done two bootlegs in terms of comics and stuff. But honestly, I think I was so underground that I sent it to some people who worked at Marvel who will be unnamed, just so that they can save grace. But I sent it to some Marvel people. I sent it to some. I handed it to a very high up at Marvel too. And I told him I was like, hey, I'm gonna give you some, but you got to promise not to sue me when I do it. I gave a copy also to Ja Romita Jr., which which was a highlight at I think I was at New York. No, what was that? That was at Heroes Con.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think I'm so underground that nobody was really paying attention. So I got away with it.
But I think what Vito was also asking, and a couple of things.
Yeah.
So listeners who may not know Marty Keene, his superhero universe
Yeah.
is with a Z.
Mhm.
With a Z. Yeah.
Could easily mistaken that for superhero universe, but it's
That's right.
superhero Z. And also the bootleg thing. So what I always love about the idea of a bootleg comic
Mm.
is akin to the creepy dude out in the park with the long jacket, and he opens up the jacket and there's
Wait,
like
who's the creepy
contraband.
dude? What are you trying to
No,
say?
no, 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 not you, not you, not you. No, man, you're fly.
That's right.
Not the
But
flasher. He's talking about the guy that's
yeah,
got like the Rolex, the
the
fake
Rolex
Rolex watch.
watch.
Oh, see, I think
That's who
I gave
you are.
myself away.
You
That's
just gave
my
yourself away. How dare you?
damn. All right. I
We
gotta
know
go.
about all your Friday nights now.
I gotta be in Prospect Park in 10 minutes, guys.
That's right. That's right. But no, but I love the idea of like the hush, like don't. In fact, last year,
Yeah.
Vito and I, and this is I think before I knew about your Spider-Man bootleg comic, but we were discussing creating a bootleg, comic for Baltimore Comic Con. It was
Mm.
going to be about four of us, right?
Yeah, it
And
was you, me, Charlie McKelvey, and Neil Clyde.
Neil Clyde, right?
Oh, cool. What
And
was it gonna be about?
it was going to be one container. We're going to each do our own. I don't remember right now how
We
that
were
was
going
going
to
to.
do basically one book, and it wasn't supposed. Here's I screwed it up, maybe,
Oh
but
no.
it was like I had like thought, oh, let's do teasers, and they were like, no, let's just do contained stories. And as I kept doing it, it just kept coming out as a teaser that felt
Mm.
like a
It was growing.
yeah, that, and
Mm.
it also felt like it was a like the way I envisioned it almost was like a grindhouse cinema uh trailers before the main event. You know what I mean? For
Interesting.
the main film. So I think we all came at it from that aesthetic, but not necessarily that like like I said, I was like doing a teaser for a bigger project, and
Mm.
everybody was like, no, we got to try to contain it so we can just sell it.
Mm.
Long and short of it, though, is I didn't sell many at Baltimore at all.
Well,
So
what happened? Well, what happened is we didn't do the bootleg thing that we
Right.
want to, and we had ideas of how to sell that. Was to like have a like say we had a bootleg comic, but then we
Yeah.
would have them bagged and in a locked box. To
Okay.
give the idea of contraband or that it's
Sure.
illegal, right? So then, if somebody asked us about it, we would have to like pull up this box from underneath the
Right.
table,
Right.
unlock it, maybe put
Yeah.
on some gloves, kind of a thing,
Right.
and then present the comic. And that would have been part of the fun of it, right?
Sure.
So unfortunately, we never did that.
Sure.
And we never got look, Vito's having a whole other conversation with us. But anyway,
Well,
yeah,
funny enough,
yeah,
the first printing I did of Bootleg Spider-Man, I sent out in brown paper bags,
you did.
which
That's awesome.
nobody understood the joke because I got a lot of emails saying that they weren't properly bagged and boarded, and that
Oh boy.
and then
Well,
they missed the plot. Some people got
when
it though.
Howard Chaykin did Black Kiss,
Right.
it came in a black wrapped bag that was
yeah,
sealed.
yeah,
Like you
Oh,
couldn't
no
even
way.
see the cover or nothing.
Oh, wow.
And so in a way, you know how we have mystery boxes now at cons and
Sure, sure, sure.
whatnot? Back then that was like a mystery bag with a comic called Black Kiss.
I think that
Wow.
predates even like the plastic blackened cover that like a Penthouse or Playboy would do at some point
Right.
for
Really?
newsstands.
What
Like I
year did
think
you do
Howard's
Black
did.
Kiss?
What's that?
What year was Black Kiss? That was
Oh boy,
It
it
could
was
be
after
either
American Flag, right?
it's
yeah.
after American
Yeah,
Flag,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
I
probably
get
in between when he's doing Shadow and Black Hawk
yeah,
and
I
some other
get
stuff.
confused because of
Right.
I've never seen Black Kiss itself. I've only heard stories of it, and I've only
Sure,
ever seen Black Kiss 2. So I'm
sure.
very like my mind is like 90s? No, it can't be 90s. Probably like
Yeah.
more like the 80s some at
It
some
would
point.
probably be late 80s,
Yeah.
and I think Vortex Comics was the publisher, and in fact, I think they were the original Mr. X publisher that Dean
Interesting.
Motter and then the Hernandez brothers produced. I think
Yeah.
for Vortex, I could be wrong about that. And they were such
Interesting.
a cool publisher because of the kind of comics that they were willing to publish, like
Right.
and now I feel like that's when companies were maybe taking more of a risk like that. And
Sure.
today I don't see companies doing that. I just see people doing it on Kickstarter. Like I don't know if you're familiar, Vito, with Pat Shand. Do you know Pat
Yes,
Shand?
I know
Oh,
Pat.
you do. Marty, you don't know Pat Shand?
I don't know.
Look up Pat Shand. He's like the king, or his company is like right now one of the kings of crowdfunding comics, Kickstarter
Right.
comics.
Yeah, I think
But
Charlie introduced us at Baltimore one year,
oh, okay.
or
And
I
he's a
met
cool
him
guy,
here.
and he has a staff, and he puts out like one or two comics a month, it feels like, or you get
Nice.
Kickstarter. And part of the secret is that I think he's serving a mature audience that's seeking comics
Sure.
that have more, nudity,
Sure, sure,
sex,
sure.
pornography, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And you know, a lot of our retailers don't really sell that, or if they do, it's like hidden in a box somewhere at the back of the store, you know?
Funny enough, I made a like an underground nudity thing at some point that I what do I have it? And this was the cover I had made for it.
Oh, that's great.
You
Oh,
know,
a brown,
it's like
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 a
a
manila,
coffee
envelope.
manila
stains on
envelope
it.
that's
Yeah,
stamped
it was
a
sent
bunch of
back, and
times.
then when you open it, then you get the actual cover, which is, this thing.
Nice.
So that's what I did for
Nice.
that to mitigate that whole thing. But I don't
I
know,
mean,
people. Yeah.
and actually, you are doing another. Well, I wouldn't call it a bootleg comic, but you're doing an Italian Batman comic, basically, right? Right now.
Well, people think it's Batman, but it's not really. It's just he's more of a goblin figure, but
Right.
I think it looks a little bit like Batman. It's where
And
is it?
what's it called again?
In Italian, it's called L'Uomo Luce, which means the light man,
The Light Man, which
the
is,
light
come on,
man.
man. And then Vito, I don't know if you can see this. I mean,
This
I
is
why,
the painting cover.
I want it. Like I want
I
it in
right?
mean,
my face.
this is him,
So good.
And
but
Um,
it's
he
in
looks like
Italian.
an early, like weird, like you say, almost like a goblin version of the very first Batman, or how a
Well,
Batman might really look with those ears, you know?
yeah, for
yeah,
our podcast listeners, it's a very it's almost taking the Bob Kane, Bill Finger version from the original Jerry Robinson even, and then just kind of like putting it through a European filter, I would
Yeah.
say. Which I
yeah,
know
because
that that's not describing anything to anybody that's never seen what we're talking about. Here, let me, Marty, say something so the camera will go to you.
so I when I posted this on Instagram, a lot of people did associate it with Batman and everything, but it doesn't have anything to do with Batman. I think it aesthetically it has that noir sort of, that old school thing of like
Well,
detective
it also reminds me
Batman-esque.
of German expressionism in a way, you know,
Exactly.
like
Yeah, it's sort of
even though
a
it's Italian inspired, you know?
But it's also
yeah,
like it looks a lot like Guy Davis's BPRD stuff too.
Yeah,
sure.
totally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wanted to make a comic that's also it's very European,
Mhm.
Yep.
very, it's gonna be whimsical, and it's in Italian.
Yeah.
I I
Which
I
you
don't
don't
speak
speak or
I don't
write.
speak Italian. No, but I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm learning Italian, and I thought the best way to learn Italian would be to write a comic book in
Yeah,
Italian. And I had because I had
that's great.
discovered these little pocket books. Because I was in Europe and I went to the shop and I asked them if they had Italian comics because I wanted to learn Italian. And they showed me these little pocket books. Which I don't have, oh, they're over there. But they're basically these 5x7 little dirty novels that were all comics, and it's two panels per page, and they're just these wonderful little artifacts. And so I thought to myself, it would be perfect to take the Light Man and turn it into this kind of aesthetic, so it looks like it could be just wedged in the shelves with all the other ones, you
Yeah.
know. So that's what I kind of want to just be part of history. It's if I ever see something that I like that happened in the past, I try to make something like that and then just kind of stick it in to see if it.
What is that in response to, do you think? Do you think it's because you feel like you might have missed out on something and you want to be a part of it? Or is it just like, I don't know, like you just want to be a part of that conversation now to maybe bring those things back to like prominence?
Yeah, I think the crux of it is just I want to play, so if I see something interesting that I haven't seen before that happened before that kind of got lost to time, I do want to bring it back. I do want to have it come back into the forefront of comics because the format of comics, how we know it, it can be played with so much,
Yeah.
and I don't think we play with it enough in terms of how we can shape our books, how we can format the books, how we can have just prose on one side and a drawing on it. We need to play more with the format. And so when I see something like that, it makes me think, okay, this book is going to be fully in Italian, but I'm going to alienate my readers, so I'm going to include a little traduzione, so that they can read along with it, and just kind of like, I'm going to start giving more credit to the comic readers as people. But it
But
really is just I want to play, you
but
know?
we also got to remember that storytelling is universal. We don't need to have
Yeah,
the interpretation, because if a story's told well, and that looks like it's told well, like I have to tell you, I got goosebumps on the back of my neck and on my arms when you were showing the pages. So
No.
I think that speaks well of it. But
Well, no.
like
Thank you.
storytelling, we don't need to be able to, like, that's why they do silent issues every now and again,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
G.I. Joe or whoever, because storytelling's so tight, you don't
that's
need
true.
the
Yeah,
words or the interpretation in this case, because you can actually figure out what's happening.
yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
have a
that's the hope.
question. I have a question, Marty. With
Yeah,
in writing in Italian, like the way comics usually handle a quote a foreign language that's not English
right.
is to write it in the foreign text, and then
Hmm.
underneath in a caption box, like with a little asterisk, like follow the
Right.
asterisk, and it has the translation. Weirdly enough, I don't even remember how this came up last night. I went and saw Captain America: Brave New World. I was
Hmm.
at Anna Senti's date. She took
Oh,
me to
cool.
see the
Nice.
movie, and it was like a
Very cool.
Marvel thing, and it was a lot of fun. And we hung out with Chris Claremont. And Chris Claremont may not have invented adamantium, but he definitely gave adamantium and Wolverine and the
Yeah,
X-Men, as we know,
yeah,
a lot of gravitas, right? And filled in a lot of the mysteries of that stuff.
right.
But at some point, and I can't remember why, but something came up where he said he tried to write an entire issue. Maybe it was through Yuki. What's Wolverine's girlfriend?
Yukio.
Yuko,
No,
Yukio,
Mariko,
Mariko,
the one that
either
he almost married.
Mariko or some other
Mm,
character. From their point of view, and all in Japanese.
mm.
And he was definitely doing the Google Translate type thing and hoping that he was getting it right,
Sure, sure, sure,
whatever.
sure.
But and he was going to try and get away with it the entire issue being like in Japanese, no
Right,
translation.
right.
But ultimately, I think editorial and then even his own common sense said, yeah, no, as much as you can try to follow the visuals, you know, and because Chris Claremont, likes to write a lot, I think,
Sure, 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 sure.
it just made sense that, but now you're getting twice as much,
Yeah,
Chris
yeah,
Claremont on the
that's true.
page, you
Right.
know. So,
Oh,
but
so
did
they
you
did
now
include the English.
they did include the
I
translation.
got you. Okay, okay.
And I know he's coming out with a mini series. I think it's Kitty Pryde and Wolverine or
Yeah.
something, or is that
Right.
what it is?
Mhm.
But did you not? Why did you decide to not do that? Add the translation within the body of the comic.
Because I think I wanted to I like it to I want also to just go to Italy at some point and just leave it somewhere, you know?
Mm,
I want people, I think, to believe it's the same reason I date back my books that the cover dates are 1952 or whatever, because in
mm.
my hope is that in 100 years, nobody will know the difference. And so they'll see L'Uomo Luce and whatever other Italian comic there is on the same shelf, and they won't be any the wiser.
Right.
And then customers here, like readers here, they can just get the artifact that is the light man in Italian, and then they have the little translation if they need it, But
So you're leaning into the whole fake news kind of vibe of
yeah,
the
so
world today,
I'm just like
creating.
if everything's made up, why not go with the flow, right?
I love it. I love
No,
it.
and
And,
also
and why and why date a comic? Why date a comic? I remember once, and I think I might have brought
mm,
this up to you, Vito, when I was working, when I was basically plotting. I plot and kind of wrote, I would say, the Fox series, the two
right.
miniseries that
Yeah,
I drew, and we got Mark Waid to write the dialogue. And
cool.
at one point, just it was a funny joke, but he mentions Justin Bieber, and
Okay.
I thought at the time, I'm trying to create evergreen stories here because I felt like Justin
Sure.
Bieber would date it, and that's fine. And like the reference is in the comic, at some point, and
Right.
it does date it because, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Justin Bieber is gone and we're never going to hear from him again,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's going to be Michael Jackson, or James
Sure.
Brown or
Sure.
Prince,
Sure.
so but yeah, it is interesting. And Vito, I think when you've written your comics, like, we've discussed this, you're trying to keep it somewhat classic,
Yeah, the hope is always to throw in, like, I'll throw in a reference in the very first issue of Stray Volume 3, which
Hmm.
I did a couple of years ago. Um, Stray uses the vernacular yeet, which is something that started on Vine which is an app that doesn't even exist anymore. But it was a girl throwing a can in a high school, and she just said yeet and just threw it. And it became like this thing that, like and I did it, I put it in there mostly for my kids, just so they could think it was funny.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is, weirdly enough, I watch wrestling. Maybe that's not weird, but here's the weird part.
Wrestling's
A
awesome.
lot of comic book folks watch wrestling.
That's not the weird part. The weird part is this: there's a character, there's a wrestler by the name of Jey Uso, and he's of Samoan descent, and he's now starting to get what they call in wrestling a push. This is going to sound like comics kayfabe, everybody. I'm sorry. So he's getting a push, and his big catchphrase is yeet. So it's still in the public consciousness. So it's very weird how these things work. But I tend to try to keep my pop culture references to a minimum, because it's not that it dates it. I don't care if it dates it. Like in the very first Stray issue, there's in the fourth issue of the first volume of Stray, there's a shot of his bedroom, and there are a couple of little things like posters, and one of the posters is a Queens of the Stone Age album. I'm a big fan of theirs, but the album that came out at the time that the comic was coming out was Era Vulgaris. And so we got the poster there on like hidden behind a couple of panels, but you can still see it if you look very closely. And so it's like, all right, are we saying that this happened then, or is it just one of his favorite albums? And I think that's the thing. Like, nobody's going to care unless I point it to them and say this is happening in 2015 or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
When you kept saying ye, sorry, didn't Kanye West change his name to Ye or something?
No,
recently?
He changed his name to Ye. We don't talk about Kanye anymore.
No, I know.
Kanye. That's why he changed it to Ye.
Oh, Ye.
Y-E.
It's spelled Y-E.
No,
and you pronounce it.
Is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Didn't
what's his name? Chalamet. Who's the actor who played Dylan recently?
Timothy Chalamet, yeah.
Didn't Timothy Chalamet and Pete Davidson do a couple of skits using the E? That was so funny on SNL.
So so Stray is still relevant.
I sure hope so.
Oh, and Vito, real quick, when I was at the movie last night, I saw Dan Slott, and I told him we've been talking about him, and I said, "Do you remember? I'm doing this podcast with Vito Delsante." He goes, "Vito, he does a comic straight." He totally remembered your comment. It was totally cool that he was on point.
I love Dan.
He says hi. And,
I absolutely love him. Michelle loves him. Like he's like an extended cousin.
And he's going to be writing Superman now or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
That's cool.
So Mahdi, let's do like a lightning round kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm going to mention a character. You're going to tell me what the bootleg is. Like
what the bootleg is?
Yeah. You like just boom, 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 like a Hollywood pitch meeting.
I come up with a different bootleg. Okay.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
So we're not going to do Batman. We're not going to do Spider-Man. Let's do Wolverine.
Wolverine, snicked in the ass. I don't know. This is bad. This is bad.
Oh my god.
This is not good.
Let's do Aquaman.
Aquaman drowned in the tub. I don't know.
Come on.
You're making me go too fast. I'm diving into the deep.
This whole podcast is about putting people on the spot. Usually it's me or usually it's Dean. I work in a toilet with a bag toilet behind me. So you can't like, you know what I mean? Like, we're putting everybody on the spot, so I don't want to hear
it. Everyone on blast. I will say this: there was a really fun Aquaman story, and I don't really read Aquaman, although I do love those Nick Cardy issues that Nick Cardy drew. Beautiful art. But Aquaman, there was a story, and I don't remember who wrote it and drew it, but San Diego goes underwater like Atlantis, and it's called Sub Diego.
That was, I believe, that was Will Pfeiffer and Chris Batista drew it.
Really?
New Yorker Chris Batista, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, that was a fun story. I remember that. What I wanted to do. I mean, I don't know if you have any more
No,
like
no,
lightning round,
No,
like
for God's
I
sake,
was
no,
gonna
please,
say,
right.
please.
But
Actually,
but
I wanted to talk about the time and place for storytelling.
yeah, okay.
'Cause I thought that was pretty, yeah, because I was thinking about it, when I date my comics, I always want to use it for the story
Mhm.
because I'm creating my own universe. I figured that if I did something that started in the 50s, I could date each comic, and the cover date is actually when the comic and the story takes place.
mm,
And all the pop culture references I put in the stories are part of the fake ads that I put in the back of the book.
Mm.
So you'll get a fake ad in Steel Streets issue 2 that'll be a poster, for example, or a billboard in another series from the thing. So I never take from the real world, where I just create these kind of, it's kind of this whole I don't know. They but I use it for the story. I don't know. I don't know if you guys
I
ever do that.
I I've I kind of do the opposite in a way. Like my art
Mm,
style, for a while I used to say it was like Silver Age meets like 1980s black and white comics, right?
sure.
Like a little bit of grit, a little bit of Kirby or Ditko, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Throw
makes
in
sense.
some Will Eisner and CC Beck. But whenever I write and draw a comic, I don't want it. I mean, I don't even know what the trend is for today. What is a 2025 Marvel DC comic look like? I don't know. But back in the day in the 60s, there was a mandate at Marvel, make it look kind of like Jack Kirby, let's say, or Jack
Right,
Kirby would lay out a lot of stuff, and then the inkers would come in and embellish it, or Steve Ditko, and it looked, like it lived in that universe, as it
right,
were, right?
right,
Those
right,
comics, and maybe the same with DC. I mean, I don't know. At one point, it was like Jim Aparo, Batman, and Kurt Swan, Superman, kind of thing.
right, right.
But they you could tell that they lived in the same universe. For me, when I draw and write a comic, I want it to feel like have a modern sensibility, but
Sure,
also keep it somewhat evergreen, like without the
sure,
Justin Bieber reference, let's say.
right.
But when you look at my comic, it still looks somewhat like a 1960s meets maybe 2000 AD or something, where just it throws a curveball
Sure,
into it,
sure,
right?
Interesting.
sure, sure.
And then it's almost timeless. It's almost like I want my comics to be timeless
Right,
in a way, unless there's a specific reason that it's 1952 or something.
right, right,
But I
right.
feel like my comics are the 50s, are the 60s, are the 70s and
Sure.
80s,
So you don't
and
use it
maybe
as part
that's
of
where
the
they live,
narrative,
huh?
right? You don't use it as part of the narrative. It's more an innate thing in you,
The
the
style,
style.
the look,
Sure, sure, sure. I got it.
kind of a thing. And like when I mentioned that your not Batman comic
Right.
uh has a German expressionistic kind of vibe to it. Like I
Yeah.
love that too. I like the Grand Guignol, I
Right,
like
right, right,
German expression. I like noir,
right,
And when
right.
I wanted to mention Steel Streets, because I think Steel Streets might have been the first comic I got from you, and we
Yeah.
met at Bix, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That Brooklyn Independent Comic Show that St. Mark's Comics has
Right.
put on. Now will be their fourth year coming this year,
Yeah.
and I think you were right across the way from me or whatever. And
Yeah.
you had so many comics for a guy that just started a couple of years ago or 3 years
Right.
ago. You have a library of comics now, which I want to get into.
Sure.
But for Vito's sake, yeah, one of your comics is called Steel Streets. And Vito, didn't you have a Steel comic or Steel
No,
something?
I did Steel City Noir
Steel
Still
City
see you are.
or
Noir.
Trip City. It was just short noir prose. Like, yeah,
That's
Oh,
right.
cool.
That's right.
Interesting.
So Vito's always been, a fan of that kind of terminology.
my God, yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So yeah, I do want to get into it. And I don't know. I mean, and we're going to be this weekend, which by the time I think this podcast airs will have already happened.
oh, right.
Um, but we're going to be at Cosmic Con New York,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be doing two panels. One is a Spider-Man panel, and the other one talks about the business of self-publishing comics. Right?
Right.
He's more qualified to do the Spider-Man panel than you are at this point.
No, no. Well, he's clocked more pages, but I have drawn and written canon
I
Spider-Man.
know, I know.
What were you saying, Dino?
Look at this. He's drinking coffee out of a Spider-Man cup. Would you look at that? What you know what I have?
What cup do you have?
I am cooler than you because what I have, Biggie Smalls,
Well, that's
Rocks
nice.
Class, my
Yeah, all
friend.
right, all right,
All
all right,
right,
all right,
there you
all
go.
right, all right.
But and again, I'm super impressed. Like
Hmm.
I'm one of the only people I know that are in my kind of indie realm
Right.
where somehow, and trust me, this could end this year, I've been able to make like just be able to skim and get by
Sure.
on the comics work that I do, right?
Right.
Like Vito has a job. Most people
Right.
I know who make comics have jobs. You also live off your comics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Um, are you like how is that like explain that to me? And again, you can if there are some things you don't want to talk about, like in terms of
Yeah.
numbers or whatever. And this is something we're going to bring up at the panel anyway. Is
Of
like
course. Yeah. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
does everyone survive and make independent comics?
Well, I think in my case, it was so I started really in 2022. I was a barista at a cafe, and I started making comics kind of monthly because I saw there was a possibility to actually do something cool because people responded to the aesthetic. Or I did one comic in the summer of 2021. I dropped it off at comic shops. They didn't want it, so I took it back, reworked it, went back. They took it, but it never sold. And so I went back, got them back again, reworked it, dropped it off again, and then a copy sold. So I said, now I'm on to something. So I then in 2022, I just started doing it. But up until 8 months ago or 9 months ago, I was still a barista. So I was working full time barista and then slowly taking days less and less in the week as the scales would tip. But essentially, it was because I did a lot of conventions and I put out a lot of books. And in the indie comics realm, I was asking, I was talking to Nick from JHU Comics, Nick Purpura,
Mhm.
and he was telling me, he was like, "Well, Marty, you know what people do when they finish reading a comic?" And I was like, "What do they do?" He's like, "They pick up another fucking comic." And so, you know what I mean? I was like, interesting. So he basically explained to me that the problem with indie guys is that they'll put out one book and then wait 6 months, and then the next book will come out. And the problem is that readers are
We'll
We
put our
both
hand
raised
up.
our hands. Yeah,
Yeah.
me and Vito raised our hands. Like,
but the thing is, I think with that is that readers are kind of it's an emotional thing to get involved in a story, you know what I mean? So it's not that you lose their trust, but it's harder for them to get invested in you when they have to wait a long time. And after I learned that, I just figured, it's like, wait, so I just got to put out more stuff than anybody, and then I'll be like in the lexicon. And I was like, just try it, yeah. And so I did it, and I would try to put out a book a month. Over the year, I would put out 12 issues at least, and then a handful of like little mini comics and stuff. But um, so my day job financed the print runs, and then after a while, the print runs would finance the print runs,
Mhm.
you know? And so it would just slowly went like that. And also you had to marketing on Instagram, the conventions, talking to everybody, being physically at every store, cold calling stores. And then I got very lucky lucky, and also it was a fun piece of work for a cartoonist kayfabe. So that gave me a huge boost in viewership. But the thing is that I did the bootleg, but when people got to me, I didn't just have the bootleg.
right.
So I did the bootleg. Thousands of people saw it thanks to the episode. But when they got to my website, they said, "Oh, there's two other series here. There's mini comics here. There's a lot of other work." And so now when I'm at a convention, yeah, I have two stands with my whole catalog, and it just slowly builds, I think. And then you kind of figure it out. And now I have like other artists that come in and do the drawing while I do the writing, but it's all within the same universe. So I think the crux of it is that you just have to put out a lot of work. You know what I mean? Because at a certain point, it
And do
becomes
it
a body of work.
fast. I
I do it
think
fast. Yeah.
Vito, were we talking about, or maybe I didn't bring this up, I can't remember, but I think we were talking about like what is the point of doing comics? Traditionally, comics come out every 4 weeks. A series
Yeah,
comes
we
out every,
we
let's
we
just
sort of
say,
got into it. Yeah.
we got into a little
Right.
bit every 4 to like 6 weeks, let's say, just to be
Right.
honest. They try once a month, right?
Right. Right.
And for me, maybe because I'm aging out a little bit, I'm like, I don't need the comic to come out once a month. I can wait 2 months. Or frankly, sometimes you just wait for the trade and then you forget to get the trade, so you never read the story anyway, out of sight, out of mind, right? So I think,
Right.
to your point, Mahdi, and to Nick Purpura's point, you got to keep showing up, right? But that's the
Yeah.
retail game. That's the retail comic book shop game, right? Like,
Right.
and I think that's an important place to be, and it's a place that I'm missing right now in my own current, self-publishing. But I'm also trying to figure out the numbers. Like, you don't crowdfund, right?
No.
You
Well,
publish, you make a comic, you publish it, and then you
Time
sell it.
out. I,
yeah.
the people that are listening to this will not fully appreciate what just happened. Dean asked a question, and Marty's face was just so deadpan. He's like, "No."
No,
Like to the point where it looked like crowdfunding as a concept was alien
No.
to him.
it was disgusting.
Yeah,
I
like,
never,
did you
no,
see
it's not
that?
that. It's not that. I just got that. I got resting bitch face. That's all it is.
That's what it
I got resting
is.
cartoonist face.
Uh,
I'm thinking about ink right now. No, it's just crowdfunding. The problem with me that I had with crowdfunding, I think it's a great concept. I just don't, I'm impatient. I didn't want to wait.
mhm.
That was it. I didn't want to wait. It seemed like a lot for a comic in my mind. I was like, for me, if a comic is 30 pages and I have to wait 8 months for it, I understand if it's a big project. I understand if you don't put out anything, but that wasn't my game. That wasn't where my head was at. I wanted to be because I came also into the industry not knowing anybody or anything about comic books. So I was on my own. So I had to build kind of a thing around me. And for the economics of it, I mean, honestly, I would use the money from the coffee shop, and I used one printer, a small indie printer in Philadelphia. And then after 3 years together, we did an exclusive deal. So now it's like business to business, and so my costs can go down.
That's
And so
nice.
the more you do it, and the more you kind of establish yourself as a consistent artist or writer or publisher, then I think other places can kind of they just bank on you, because they're like, yeah, you've been a customer with us for 3 years. Every month we get money from you from these things. Yeah, let's make a deal so we keep our relationship and everything.
Do you
And
want to
then
give
it's
a
just
shout
kind of,
out? You want to give a shout out
yeah,
to the
Fireball Printing. And if you use the code Zuper, you get 10% off if you for one
nice.
time thing. You see
It's
what I
like a
did there?
real podcast now.
There you go. There, yeah, we got.
We're legit. It took 7 episodes, but
I
we're
finally got
legit.
an ad.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, but I
uh,
think the economics of it is just kind of conventions and also I was never there's this like kind of pretentiousness that people have about being a full-time artist. Like it's a big deal. I'm a full-time this far. I'm like, yeah, but fuck that. I don't care. It's like I do if you have a day job, just it's all for one purpose, it's for the dream. So
yeah,
I never minded having a day job and working in this thing. The only reason
right.
I'm not doing my day job anymore is because the scales tipped and I have more time and I wanted to have more time and I want to do more things. Started the fan club, I started the merchandising, all these little things. And so you get kind of you get the spark and you just want to keep it going.
I'm
But
so
yeah, I don't know.
inspired by you. I'm
Well, Dino,
gobsmacked how.
I just want to be like you, Dino. What do you mean?
No, you don't. Trust me. No, but it's so cool that you're so industrious like this. And when I created Activate, which is a webcomics collective on the Live Journal blogging platform in
Mm,
2006, and we
mm,
did that for a really there was a really intense couple of years of everybody who was part of it would commit and do their once a week comic for free, and then that kind of dominoed to having more people join in and expanded. And then we got built a website and everything else, and then even got published by IDW. We did a anthology that was like a boomerang effect. It was like people who weren't reading web comics might want to pick up this anthology and then go, oh, there's like 16 really cool stories in here, and you can read a lot more of them for free
yeah, yeah.
online. The problem was I never figured out how to monetize that, right? So
Yeah.
you've out the gate, right out the gate. I'm gonna drop, pouring coffee. I'm gonna pick up a pen and monetize my comics, never having made comics before.
I
It's
mean,
unbelievable.
I think it's because I was coming from music.
I was gonna say, like, I
Mm,
feel like you're coming from a different angle, and
Yeah,
like I did notice that. Funny enough, like I did my due diligence. I looked you up, and I saw a
yeah,
lot of music,
yeah.
and I thought it was, and I was like, there's got to be a reason. Like in this conversation, there's got to be a reason why he was able to look at because you're not. This is going to sound odd, but I think you'll
Mm,
understand what I'm saying. You're not fulfilling a need because
mm.
there's never a need for more comics. There's
No,
just a need
yeah,
for better comics. You know what I
sure.
mean? So you're filling a need in that respect, but at the same time, how do you get to the word out that your comic is better than this comic or the last one or whatever? And so you're filling a need in that respect, but not in the grand scheme of it. So you have to, and I don't know, maybe the music industry taught you something. You have to look at it from a different point of view than Dean and I do, because it's funny. Dean was talking about something a second ago, and it made me think. My my raison d'etre, I guess, or whatever, is always to have a new something at the table that whenever I go to the table again for the conventions. And I always have the old stuff, but I noticed the old stuff doesn't sell as much. You might get one or two people that have never seen it, but at this point, probably everybody's seen it. So there's always supposed to be something new at the table. And it doesn't always work. And like with you, I feel like you have like this, like you said, 2 columns worth of your stuff. And so there's got to be stuff there that's been, like 2 years old, maybe a year old, something like that. And maybe something new as well. But then there's the merchandising aspect. And that's the part I think that like a lot of us, especially, I'm 52, Dean is in his 50s. I don't imagine you're anywhere close to us. You're probably 20 years younger than us at this point, if not more. And so there's got to be like maybe a generational divide. There might be a perspective that comes from music that we're not picking up on because we've been in this so long. So what can you like? What do you speak to like in that respect? Like, what is it?
I mean, because when I was doing music, I was gigging around New York and like trying to record my albums, self-produced. There was always an indie vibe to it. It was always indie and self-producing and playing all the instruments and recording and trying to get your music out there. But the thing is that the music industry, there's no physical media anymore.
Right.
And so you do your gigs and you're a session musician here, you get paid to do a wedding here, you do this, and it's kind of soul sucking and everyone wants covers, and you just you have to be a nobody until you're a somebody. And so there's nothing or everything. With me though, I was at the moment where I was starting to get my foot in the industry and being like a proper working musician, and then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And so once COVID hits, all the things went away. And then serendipitously, just randomly, I decided to make comics. I remembered that I loved comics before I loved music, essentially. And I was like, wow, because I don't know, maybe during COVID, I was thinking introspectively, what did I like as a kid? You're trying to find a way to get some joy. So I was like, I remember I used to love comics. McFarlane Spider-Man was huge for me. When did I forget that? And so I just started making comics. And because I knew I sucked when I started, I was like, there's no way that Marvel or DC or Image would give me a job ever. So I'm just gonna start having fun and whatever and working on my thing. And then I realized that one thing that comics has that other art industries don't is a middle class because of the physical media. And so I realized that in music, you're poor or you're super rich, it's Spotify, whatever. In the fine art, it's a racket anyway. So either you're nothing or you're something, In every other industry, there's nothing in between. But comics, you can still peddle. You can still fucking trunk your car, sell your comic books. And when I realized that, I found a way out of my service industry because I figured, my knees aren't going to last forever. So I need another way. I need something. And so seeing that opportunity, I decided to just go full force and just kind of learn the industry and see what I needed to do. And when I realized even more than that, the shops are independent too. I don't have to go through a corporate Walmart to get whatever. It was fantastic. For me, it was just it was the Wild West. I was like, you can do anything. And then learning about the actual medium of comic book making, it was even more freeing of an art form because then there was no rules anymore. Yeah.
It's fascinating to hear about this because I'm having kind of like not palpitations, but like
Oh,
growing up, me and Vito can attest to this. Like, if it wasn't a Marvel, DC, Archie comic, and it wasn't like an underground R. Crumb type thing, then it wasn't a real comic, especially if you self-published or folded and stapled mini comics. It just wasn't real. Like, and so we had like Small Press Expo and then Ape and then a couple things. Now there's a ton of like alternative independent comic shows. But back then, so there was a stigma that was attached to like anything alternative that you might do. Well, that's not a real comic, like And the same things could probably be said about film and songs and music and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not part of a system or part of the pyramid scheme of the business of those things,
Right.
it wasn't necessarily real. And also those institutions would also try to make it seem like you weren't real because they
Yeah.
didn't want you to infiltrate,
Well,
Sure.
the other thing too is that there were outliers while we were growing up too, like Comico with Grendel,
Yeah.
Fantagraphics with Love and Rockets. Geez, you could name a lot of Howard stuff that he did on the independent scene. Uh, Strangers in Paradise by Terry Moore,
Yeah.
Stray Bullets by Dave Lapham. The thing about those is that they were so outside of the regular norm that they would come or they would go. And like with Comico, they went out of business. So you had like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at Tundra, and then all of a sudden there was no Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I guess this isn't a viable business model to model your business after. And the streets are littered with comic book companies that have come and gone, that have played the game with Diamond and have lost their shirts. And I think the thing that Dean and I, as creators in this, this generation, of everybody doing things online and everything, we're trying to circumvent the way of losing our shirts by, number one, taking them off whenever we feel like it, and number two, doing things differently, like publishing through Kickstarter, putting things online, or something like that.
Right.
But somehow or other, and I don't know if Dean is picking up on this or if it's just me, somehow or other, man, you've got like that 80s black and white zeitgeist to you, that kind of punk rock aesthetic. And again, that might be from the music industry, or it might just be who you are inherently. And there's something very enviable about that. And like there's something that's like somebody needs to get like more microphones in front of you so you can teach the rest of us how to do it, because and I'd say that you're our guest, and I'm sure that's part of me just being nice, but at the same time it's like, no man, like seriously, what do you know that I don't, and why is it that I don't know it yet? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying give all your secrets away, or let's sit here and debate the whole thing. I'm just saying that like you figured something out, and that's super impressive and super enviable.
I figured out the word that I would describe based on and I want you to continue, Mahdi, is synergy. You somehow synergize so many things to make it like your catalog of comics. If you get that one, you got to get those other ones. It's not separate from each other. It's all part of this experience.
Well, I brought back the shared universe. I essentially, like, the secret of superhero comics is just I looked at the things I liked, like Stan Lee back in the day, and I was like, I want to do that. And so I just did it. Same thing with the Italian comics. I want to, it's just like, can I have it? I want to do that. And so Stan Lee, I look around, there's no shared universe anymore. So I want to bring in a shared universe. I can tell you that I think I will be the only writer probably at Superhero Comics, because I want to have full, control of everything. I want to typewrite everything. I want to bring back that aspect. But I think the real secret as to why I'm productive or why I'm able to put out so much or whatever is, honestly, it's because I don't give a fuck. That's really it. It's because I'm not precious. My first comics, they were bad, man. They were like, the art was bad, but the writing, I'm in my 30s, so I can write some words, So that was okay. But in my mind, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, so I just gotta keep it going. I'll learn on the page. The page is meant to be turned. It's fine. If the words can get you to turn the page and the art isn't too distracting, then it'll be okay. And then now, after 20 books or whatever, people now buy the back catalog, because now it's part of the body of work.
Yeah.
And I think when you do enough and you end up having a body of work, then it doesn't matter what it looked like. You just become undeniable. And I think that people, I think the biggest thing that people have stopping themselves is their own, they think too much about it. They're worried about how it's going to be perceived. They think all these things. But my thing is, I just want to have a good time. Like, I want to play. Like, I do fake ads in the back of just like, I Photoshop Arnold Schwarzenegger holding a shoe and I put a Z on it. It's the Zupa shoe. It's like, whatever. Like, what's the worst thing that happened? He just
It's
kind
like
of
you're a
like
cross between Stanley and Quentin Tarantino, and that Quentin Tarantino, all his
yeah,
movies have some shared universe aspect to them.
right,
Stanley was kind of the glue that
right,
helped, even though the artists were basically writing the stories after a while, for sure.
yeah, yeah,
He was the guy that gave it the voice and to the horn. The other thing
yeah,
people don't talk about a lot is, and you have this, is he was an incredible art director too. Like
Hmm.
right,
he knew what made a good cover and
sure,
and he would talk to the artist, and there's so many examples out there of covers that got rejected or that got changed because
right,
it was just a little bit like this or like that. He
yeah,
just had a good sense for that, and I think you have that as well. And all the other thing, when you're saying I don't give a fuck, is you were not intimidated by comics, you know.
no, no,
I think me and Vito growing up, I thought, oh, I could never draw like that guy. Neil Adams, are you
sure,
kidding me?
sure,
Art Adams, anybody named
right,
Adams, it's terrifying
right.
to me.
The Addams
So,
family, even that, yeah,
but man, like, I've always had this hesitation. Today, while drawing, I have a
right,
hesitation to to
sure,
to work on the page because of something hovering over me or whatever it is,
right,
from
yeah.
growing up with this sense of defeat, almost. And then you try to trudge through it. But with you didn't have any of those fears or shackles.
Because I'm a rock and roll guy. I just came,
Yep.
I essentially came in with my guitar, dropped it, picked up a pencil, and I know that like my books, I don't claim myself to be a great artist. I never have. I don't think I think I have vibe. I think that's what it is. When people get a book from me, they like the vibe. It's kind
Yeah.
of it's nostalgic but new, and it's funny, and there's like, the ads are just ridiculous and you never know what's real and what's not, and the stories are fun, but the art is just, it gets the job done. But
It's
yeah,
like
I
if
think
your art's kind of like if Klaus Janson had diarrhea, you know?
Anyway, um, let's get into
yeah,
let's
100%, but it's a relief, diarrhea. Remember
It's a
that.
relief. It's get it out. Turn
Exactly.
the page. Don't, yeah, you know.
Exactly.
let's
And
give
yeah,
everybody like your website, so where they can find you, where they can find the
Sure.
books.
It's everything can be found at diarrhea.com. No,
Yes.
at zuperherocomics.com. What is he?
Okay.
And Instagram is at Mahdi Khene, Mahdikehene. And yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff.
so Vito, I don't know how much time we have. I can go a little longer if Marty can go a little longer. Can you
Yeah,
go a little longer?
I have a fun question to ask you guys.
And
Yeah,
then I
yeah,
have some questions, and then Marty might even have one or two. So all right, go for
100%.
it.
Yeah.
So in this, DIY aesthetic, I think everybody, uh, the three of us, maybe more so than most, I think we've all come to comics from a place of wanting to make something with your friends. And I was just
Right.
wondering if you guys have ever like made comics with your friends before you actually started making comics. Because I know I did when I was a kid. I
Mm,
would make comics with my cousin Robert, and then when I was in high school, my friend Matt Sweeney and I, we kind of came up with these weird cowboy outlaws in a futuristic world and stuff. And yeah, I like it just hit me the other day. I was like, I've always been a collaborator. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
I've always been like somebody that wanted to work with other people to make comics. So I was just wondering, Marty, what about you?
But you
Oh
had
wait,
to, Vito. But sorry, you had to, Vito.
what do you
Because
mean?
well, because you're a writer, and
But back then, I thought I was going to be an artist. Like I was
oh,
drawing a little bit more back then. I was a little more active about it. Then football happened, girls happened,
Sure.
that kind of thing. And I became more of a writer in
right.
like senior high school than I was in junior high school. So yeah.
And then you want to work with people who football and girls didn't happen to. Stay with the artists. I would assume Marty, because I mean, even though you said you have a love for comics
Yeah.
before you were doing music and barista, I, I assume, I mean, you'll answer, but my guess is that no, you collaborate now.
I collaborate now for sure, but I think before I always like with my older brother, we always had characters. We would always invent characters all the time. We have these characters that we still reference to this day. They've been alive for 30 years, you know what I mean? But when I was a kid, comics was I didn't even think that they could be made. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because
yeah,
for
I
me,
totally know what you mean.
Yep.
for me, comic books, they were movies in my hand. You know,
Yep.
that's what it felt like to me when I was a kid. And I was
Yep.
grew up reading a lot of the French BDs, the bande dessinées.
Mm.
I grew up with those things, and for me, it was just kind of like moving. It was moving pictures in my head. So I never even thought of it as a that I could. I would draw when I was a kid. I drew up until I started playing guitar. You know, I drew all the time, but I never drew sequential stuff. There were always stories. There was always a pose of a person, and there was a face and something, but there was never anything, yeah, beyond that.
Nothing more
No, but
narrative sequentially. Yeah, yeah.
no, but
I
there was always storytelling. Yeah.
Do you think any of
so
those characters will show up in a superhero comic?
I think they all have, honestly, because I swear to God, sometimes I do some, and my brother's like, "Wait a second,
hey,
am I getting writer credit on that?" Because that's like, you know what I mean? What
I
about you,
uh
Dean?
I have two responses. One is I don't think Vito knows Nicholas Forker. I know you
Hmm,
know Nick Forker.
I know Nick. Yeah.
And he's actually going to probably be. I'm going to get him to share my table this weekend and help
Oh,
me out.
cool.
But he teaches comics to kids, and he was telling me how they come up with the best names for superheroes, and it's true. And
Wow.
I had to just share this, and nobody can steal this from this kid. And I don't know the
Sure,
kid's
sure,
name or
sure.
nothing, but he came up with a character named Crime Criminal.
Oh man, that is
And
great.
that's you can't get better than Crime Criminal. You
Oh
can't.
man.
That's the
Well, I
best.
wish that.
Um, but to answer Vito's question, oh my God, man, like I started a comic book company with my high school friends, okay,
No
who
way.
I'm still mostly friends with today, including Josh Neufeld, who is
Yeah.
a really important cartoonist. My best friend Mike Houston, who's a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer. A bunch of guys. Eric Waldman, Sean Smith, Delmo Walters, Phil DeJean, Todd Dixon. I'm sure Gina Cole drew some comics and Jennifer Louie. Uh, and we would all it was all part we all part of Paradox Productions.
Just
And
pause. Dino would be
yeah.
great at accepting an Oscar, by the way.
Oh,
Don't you
oh
think?
me?
Yeah, the way you say names, you're just like, and I'd like to thank no 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 no
Oh my
and no, no, no.
and not to be and I know Vito, you're religious. Marty, I don't know if you're religious, but I actually had a epiphany recently.
Okay.
Um, Not necessarily the Oscars or those kinds of award shows, but definitely at like the Grammys and music shows. Who's the first person most people think?
I would hope
Usually,
it's their parents.
God.
no, God, of course. Yeah.
It's God. And they're always like, "Thank you, God. If it wasn't for you, God," and all this stuff. And I know they're usually talking probably about Jesus, and and I know there's a lot of other gods in the world, and there's new gods, Jack Kirby, and all that. And I'm not religious, but I started thinking, I gotta start thanking God, like in public, start talking about God. I think my comics would do better if I added a little more, zhuzh, a little God
Yeah, yeah,
zhuzh.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know
a
what I'm
little
saying?
bit.
So, pro tip,
Put a little
I'm gonna check it
divinity
out.
on it. There you go.
Exactly. And speaking of, actually, this will be a question. I have a couple of my own, but I asked Whitney Matheson, my studio mate, before she left. I said we're going to be doing another podcast tonight. Can you give me a question to ask all of us? And let me find it really quick. Uh, she asked, "Do awards mean anything to you?"
No.
I was going to say, I'm sure Marty will say no. I think at one point, and I'm just saying that based on our conversation tonight. Like I feel like
Yeah, sure.
if there's ever somebody that like really doesn't want it, like doesn't care to be acknowledged, it's probably you because
Yeah.
the way you said that, like you just want to have fun doing it. And I think a lot of times, Dean actually brought this up, I think last week about me, how, or no, 2 weeks ago, about how like there was a point in making comics where I got a little depressed
Mhm.
and I was a little down, and I was going to speak to it back then, and I'll speak to it now instead. It was because I had a modicum of success working with Marvel and DC, mostly DC, and I was at that competitive nature of trying to make money and trying
Sure.
to, maintain that. At some point, I'm sure like, and this goes to the awards thing too. At some point, I started realizing that the thing I want to do more than anything, more than win an award, more than get a page rate or anything like that, is I want to make comics with my friends. And by and large, the last 10 years, I would say that I've done exactly that. So I don't need an award for that. Like, it'd be nice at some point, to have some kind of recognition. I think a nomination is worth more than an award, just for that recognition. But, I've accepted that it's probably never going to happen.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't never meant nothing to me. Awards. Like I get the recognition from the people I work with and from like readers and stuff like that. And I think it's more important to just to not stifle your desires and your dreams.
Yeah.
And because I mean, Frank Sinatra said it. At the end, I stood tall and I did it my way. That's what you want. It doesn't matter. We all end up where we end up at the end. So it's just kind of like if we can just at least look back and be like, no matter what happened, what's mine is mine, and what I did was what I wanted to do. Then if someone tells you, give me a trophy for it, I'm like, cool. I mean, I'll take the award, but it doesn't mean anything.
But guarantee after this conversation, Mahdi's going to create a Zuperverse, an award for somebody or something.
Himself.
And I'm giving it to Vito. And I'm giving it to Vito.
I don't need your award.
What's funny? I wanted to, speaking of awards, I guess, I wanted to get like one of those replica wrestling belts.
Oh,
and like say, all right, it's my belt. I have the best comic here. If you can out comic my comic, you can have the belt for a year. Then the next time we come to this convention, you got to put your belt up.
Oh,
right.
Wow, that's great.
I still want to do
that. That's great.
It's two people stepping
comic
in the ring.
comic.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Two people stepping in a ring and just reading quietly.
And depending on their reaction, their enthusiasm for the book is how you determine the win. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. So I think I have one or two more questions, but Mahdi, did you have one?
Wait, you didn't answer, Dino. What do you feel about awards?
Oh, I think they're a fun spectacle. Like I'm taking it from the point of view of watching awards or seeing awards, right? Like they just announced today who the Eisner judges are for the new Eisner Awards. And I know two of them. But what I do know is to not write them and say, yo, could you make sure to read my comic and give it a, it's already implied if I say congratulations on, becoming a judge, I'm acknowledging. I like the spectacle of like the Oscars, the Grammys, the Golden Globes or whatever. To me, it's like I don't watch sports, so it's like watching a sports game for some reason. I don't know. I don't really care who wins, to be honest. It's just again the gathering of a whole bunch of people in a room, that I dig. And sometimes, whatever. As I get older, those people become less and less anybody I've ever heard of, to be honest.
Oh,
but that's right. I mean, I'm like,
Ringo's last year was rough in that respect.
Oh yeah, well,
I mean, and nothing against any of the talent that was nominated or anything like that. They're all worth, the paper that they're printed on and like, the entertainment that they gave everyone. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that, like you said, like as we get older, the creators get younger, so you don't know them. There were two young ladies who kept winning for like their, I forget the name of it. And it's a really good comic too. I think it's a webtoon, and it's like a modern day not mythology, fairy tale of some kind. Like and it's a wonderful book, like a wonderful read anyway. And they're like the thing that I was drawn to, and the reason why I wanted to check out their comic is they were so engaging in winning their awards, and they were so gracious, and they were so like their kindness came through. And I think that you have to repay that. It's a little bit different than I once went to the Eisner Awards and someone cursed out the guy somebody won an award and cursed out the guy who had put the spotlight on him. So it's, I'd rather the former than that, even though the person that it was totally within their character, totally funny at the time that it happened. But at the same time, it's an award, like we should carry ourselves a little bit better,
Well, likability goes a long way. Likability is I mean, I think Mahdi, you probably sell well because you're fun to be around. You're a nice guy,
I mean,
Come on.
Maybe.
Sure.
I
A
don't
little, just a
know.
little bit.
I
It was
put on a nice hat, you know.
Just there you go.
I
Nice
dress for the
hat.
occasion. I don't know.
So
Well,
wait,
yeah,
you were gonna have a
my question would be, so me looking at the industry, I see nothing but optimism in terms of expression. Where do you guys see comic books being? Like in terms of how do you think that comics are going to be able to fit the stories that you guys want to tell? Or how do you guys think you're going to adapt comic books, the medium, to the stories you're going to tell?
So I think the dirty secret behind this podcast is that is the question we keep asking every episode in a way,
Oh, interesting.
is in this case, what is a comic book in 2025? And like,
Right.
That's
what does that
probably the
even
theme
mean?
for the year. Yeah.
Yeah. What
You
is a
know,
comic book, really? Yeah.
and what is a comic book? And I struggle with this every day. I'm like, why am I doing this? You know, and like to your point, Marty, about, you know, I discovered recently, and I've said this, I think I wrote it in my Substack. If it's not fun, just stop, just cut it
Yeah.
out. And it's not been fun for a while, you know. In fact, I declared to Vito, I think in our first or second episode, that I think I quit comics 2.5 years ago by
Oh, wow.
doing crowdfunding comics,
Mm.
you know, in a way. Because what I did is I dusted off my shoulders. I was like, oh, I'm kind of allergic to pitching to publishers now. I
Yeah.
don't have the need to write and draw the Fantastic Four. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening? You know, I quit comics. And in
Yeah.
quitting comics, I found my comics again, you
Right.
know,
Right.
and the spirit of what I'm trying to do. And I do think having these kind of conversations and committing to, like, especially your commitment. I mean, you're rocking a lot more pages than I'm going to rock this year. Trust me, you know. I just hope that my measly amount of pages somehow are better than yours. No, I'm kidding. No, we
Dino,
all
they're
need to
always going
be.
to be better than mine. Yeah.
No, but ships
Always.
rising together. You know that
Right.
I
Yeah.
am a communal guy. I do care about
No,
other
Dino,
people's comics.
I hung out with you at Terrificon. Dino, I will say, is a stand-up guy. He's one of the few people in comics that when you walk up to a group with him, the first thing he'll do is introduce you to the group. He
To
won't
everyone.
start talking to everyone, you know, and
Hmm.
it's amazing because I've been in situations where you walk up to a group and you're with somebody and then they're talking to the big people, you know, whatever, and then you're left there to kind of, you know, like, oh, okay. Dino, first guy, he says, he's a Klaus, you know Marty? Marty, do you know his work? You know, shake it, come here. Do you know his work? You know, he's generous with his group and with his charisma, and that
Thank you.
I'll pay you back for years for that. You know,
Thank you.
I don't
Thank you.
for
mean to
sure.
make this like the Dean Haspiel Appreciation Society, but it there's a truth to what you're saying in that um, Dean is also. I used to make the joke when I worked at the comic store in Manhattan that between the two of us, we knew everyone in the comic book industry. Like
That's so
there was
cool. Yeah.
no, there was no, and there was no way that somebody wouldn't know who I am
Right.
based on the fact that they probably met me through Dean. And the thing that Dean does fantastically is he knows how to match people up. He would have been a great
Yeah.
editor at some point,
Oh, for sure.
where he would say, "You have to meet blank," you know,
Yeah.
and then he will literally drag you through the streets of San Diego to
Yeah.
meet this person because he felt that there was some kind of simpatico between the two of you that you two needed to like sit down and have like a powwow or something.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, your sense of community is strong and it's
Yeah,
appreciated
that's
in
it
this
right there.
industry.
Well, I
Because for
appreciate
me, it's not a
that.
competition, it's a collaboration, which
Yeah,
I think
Thank you.
is a big
Thank you.
theme, and a lot of people see it as a competition,
Right.
where Dean, he never thinks, and I think most people shouldn't think this way, giving you food doesn't take food away from him. You
Right.
know, but that's a confidence thing that you have
Right.
that not a lot of people can have, you know, so.
Although at this point, I should probably eat a little less food. So Vito, did you want to wait?
No,
So
We
no,
answered
I
that.
don't know if I really answered the question, except that like I've become more acutely aware. You know, I keep joking about like I don't want to. I like comics. I don't like the business of comics.
right.
But it's
And
changing, guys. It's changing.
and yet, if we can control the business of comics, you might feel a little bit better about and maintain your expectations. right?
Yeah.
Because Vito, when you were on the rise as a writer in mainstream comics, and then suddenly you're like not getting what you want out of it, that is a downer. That can make you feel like your self-worth is suddenly, in this big bucket of Marvel and DC characters, and then they're telling you no, or just not, it's just not working out, or whatever the politics are or reasons.
I'll give a
Yeah.
quick anecdote that will name names because and I don't think it's insulting to the person. So, um, day that my issue of Superman came out, Superman 676, I had an amazing signing where I was sitting next to Adam Kubert, Joe Kubert, Stefan Roux, and myself. And like, you got to be kidding me! Like, you kidding?
Yeah.
And after the signing was over, I was still working at the comic store, so I went upstairs and I got onto Gmail and I emailed Eric Stevenson and I said, "My Superman comic came out today. Let's talk." I'm still waiting for a reply. And all that to say that it's fine. Like I'm not asking for anything. I'm not looking for anything anymore. I found what I was looking for, and that's working, like I said, working with my friends. As to Mahdi's question, what do I hope for the future, or in terms of like what the books are going to be, or what the business is going to be, what the business model is possibly going to be. I think we're going to look at more straight to like almost like direct to video. I think we're going to have more direct to trade paperbacks, and I think that's going to be the monthly model. And like because I made a joke of it last week when we talked to Russ Kazmierzak. He's putting out these digests this year, like 3 or 4 this year, that'll come out quarterly for a modest amount of money. I think it was $30, he said. And it made me think that like, I blurted out, oh, because of the tariffs that we're going to have to deal with printing and paper and stuff. And when you think about it, it does make sense to just do trade paperbacks at this point because you have the higher price point. You have something that is complete, like a book. Like no one ever sells chapters of books, in the book market. So like it's the model should be something similar to that. I don't know how feasible it is, and I don't know when that will become a thing. Like my wife's trying to hide the toilet. It's too late.
I thought she was testing out her Halloween costume or something.
Yeah.
Bomb thing, or I don't know what's going on back there.
So, all right.
Interesting.
I think we are good to go. Unless you got another question, Dean or Mahdi.
I did have a quick thought because one thing to address something that Mahdi was bringing up was about working with your friends, right? Or trying to do a shared universe. Vito, you and I and Charlie McElvey have been discussing the idea of a shared universe for a while now.
And New Brooklyn.
Spider Squirrel, New Brooklyn, Trash Panda, Stray. I can see Mahdi there, throwing in his character because we all own our characters.
Yeah.
We're just crossing over and to expand on this idea of, in a way, what you've created, Mahdi, is collectability. Like if someone gets your new comic and then gets a more recent thing, they're like, I got to get the first ones, that you're creating this synergy of collectability, in a way. So,
and I think people also, there needs to be an intentionality with what you do in the sense that one series, I did it as all one shots connected by the same universe so that you could also, you didn't need to buy all the comics. You could get one comic, but then it would give you a hint to the other one. And so all these different things. And I think more people now, like my generation of creators, I don't know, why am I optimistic about this? Is because I think that my generation, we don't see the bullpen as a thing anymore. You can't just go into the offices anymore. It's inaccessible to us for the most part. You have to be a proven entity to be given a chance to publish at a greater scale. And so a lot of us, it's almost like you can't even see the sun. And so you're just kind of like, well, I'm not going to bother getting a tan. So you're just going to end up working, And so you're just going to tell your own stories. So I just see a lot of creativity and a lot of honesty coming in the next couple of years,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
intentionality, I think.
Absolutely. Because you don't need to be sanctioned anymore by anybody. You can just decide on your own. you
Right.
know, and that's
Exactly.
what's important. Now, like there are a lot of fools out there that are like, come on, you could use an editor, you could use this, you know, take some
100%. Yeah.
advice, you know, or whatever. But then, you know, they're diamonds in the rough and go-getters. And I
Yeah.
recognize passion more than I recognize skill set, you know, like,
And also
right,
you end up getting the respect of people you admire, and you end up getting your peers, that
right,
respect you, which is, I mean, I have to have Jim Salicrup be in my letters column, you
right,
know,
right.
is insanity, to
I know.
have, it's just all these crazy things that start happening where you end up getting
I know it's crazy, and
it's
like,
good, yeah.
and then I become friends with these guys, and I'm gonna be on a panel
Ex
with Jim Salicrup and
exactly,
Danny
yeah.
Fingeroth, and like that's
Yeah.
insane, you know.
So
So, in fact, you
you
should crash that panel,
Oh,
as
of
you know.
course. I'm gonna
Yeah.
come in and I'm gonna break the door
So,
down.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
man. And then just one final thing that I kind of was circling around. For some reason, I've been listening to Rob Liefeld's Robservations podcast, like the last three or four. He's going bananas, you know, like he
Uh-huh.
quit Marvel, he felt dissed, he's
Oh,
never doing Deadpool again or whatever.
oh,
And then, you know, leading into his new stuff or whatever, and he's like trying to fix Marvel. This is how you fix Marvel. But one thing he brought up that I thought was interesting was the analogy came from appointment TV, how we used to have appointment TV, right?
hmm.
Every Thursday there'd be like four shows everybody watched or
Right,
whatever.
Years.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then for years. And then he was talking about appointment comics, and he felt, I might get this wrong, paraphrasing, that the last appointment comics were kind of like Chris Claremont and John Byrne's X-Men. You know, every month you couldn't wait for the next issue, or Walt
Right,
Simonson's Thor or something.
right,
And that there aren't appointment comics anymore. Do you feel
right.
like that's true? I mean, I think you might be beyond to something, but also that goes to coming out once a month. In order for
Yeah,
it to be an
That's what
appointment,
I
it
was
has to
about
have
to
a
say.
date.
Like you can't have an appointment TV is based on the weekly model.
right.
So the thing that I remember the most is that every Tuesday at 8 o'clock it was Happy Days. 8:30 was
Right,
Right.
Laverne and Shirley. I knew what day of the week it was because I knew it was Tuesday because Happy Days had to come on.
right.
You can make the argument that at some point they're going to put a rerun up, but all the first run episodes have to run.
Right.
You can't do a rerun for a comic.
Mm.
That's called a trade paperback, really.
Mm,
But
Right.
like
mm.
you can't put that in the
Or
run of the weekly comic. So
right.
the idea of it's more like appointment TV is gone because binge watching is a thing now.
Well, HBO had the last time you binge. I mean, the last time you had an appointment TV was Sundays,
Yeah,
HBO Sunday,
Sopranos
right?
and
Like Game of
Right.
Game of
Thrones or whatever,
Thrones and
right?
stuff. Yeah.
And then it was Lost at one point before that on NBC, whatever, or ABC. But and then you're right. Like before we had trade paperbacks, if you didn't get the comic that week, you lost out, man,
Yeah.
unless it somehow got into a back issue bin type
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
And then they realized, oh, the rerun, like you're saying, let's collect it and we can sell it
Right.
again, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
Today,
the model is the summer rerun from our youth.
Right.
Nowadays, Monty, I apologize, we're old.
No,
Now,
no, no. Nick at Night was my favorite.
okay, nowadays, like what they do is there's now summer programming. So it used to be that there weren't so many TV shows because
Right.
there wasn't a big desire for new stuff. So you
Right.
would have Happy Days from September to May, and then from June to September was all reruns of Happy Days in the same
Right.
time slot. Now, Happy Days only runs from May to December. December to June is a different show in that same
Right.
time slot. So there's no, again, the appointment idea of it is gone.
yeah.
So
Right.
it's so, and that's just TV. Going back to the comics, there's no model like that now.
I think
Well,
not in
it's
the
events.
big.
I think it started with events. I think that's why we have so many event
Oh,
comics.
good
Is the
point.
crossovers is because it got people to go, oh my God, like Crisis on Infinite Earths, what's going on? Secret Wars, what's going on? And then they did that over and over and
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
again till it meant nothing. I used to joke, how did Marvel and DC make the apocalypse boring?
Right.
Like come on already, and I do like, so let me just reverse engineer the question a little bit and go, what are the comics you're super excited getting next week or next month or
But
the series that you're reading right now?
you know what it is that I think it's become less about the big publishers and the storylines and about the creators. That's
Hmm.
now the new appointment comics, where it's like, let me get the latest Dean Haspiel joint, let me get the latest Vito Delsante joint, let me get the latest Mahdi Khene joint. That's what it's become. It's no longer about storylines. Comics, our readers are between my age and your age. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
So we're not trying to follow huge storylines anymore. We're not trying to get a year's worth of comics to kind of follow the characters. We want to get nuggets of inspiration, and we're just kind of going forward. But we want to be inspired, especially when we're artists. You know, we want to be inspired, and so we go through to the artist joint. But I don't know. I mean, I'm reading Underground Spain Rodriguez right now as I'm
Mm.
doing my
You
own
know
thing.
what's funny that you say that, because Dean was throwing out influences for you earlier, and he was
Mm,
saying that there's a couple of different influences of European comics, and I was like, there's an underground, not necessarily crumb, and I was like, Spain
yeah,
Rodriguez might be the son of a bitch. You said it. Like I didn't say
I love
anything.
Spain. I
Like
love
it's
Spain.
so
I mean,
crazy.
let's. I'll show off just a couple things if you don't mind.
And while you get that ready, I'll tell you a quick, tiny anecdote. I remember Gary Groth called me up from Fantagraphics, and they were putting together a Spain Rodriguez collection. Or I forget what the story was. I don't know if it was Trashman. What was it? Trashman? Was that his comic?
Trashman and Bad Bitch and
Or
Yeah.
something like that. And but they needed that there was one story that was not finished or something. And he
uh,
thought that my style, if I could do it in his style,
oh no
would.
way.
And I was like, no, I'm not touching that with the. No way, there's no way I'm gonna even attempt that. So,
Oh
but
man.
now I'm thinking you should have been the guy, maybe.
Oh well,
So
call him up. Call Gary
I
up.
think
Tell
this
him.
was like a few years ago. Maybe it already came out. I assume. I don't even remember what
It's
Well,
happened.
tell
But
past.
tell him
It's
about the
Spain's past.
appointments and tell him we can we can
yeah,
reissue.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No, so I don't know. Like this is underground comic where I mean I don't know if we can show. It's just
Yeah.
underground. It's black and white. It's big on Spain. It's
Totally.
just raunchy and it's funny stuff, panel heavy. Then
Love it.
I switch lanes completely and I go to this one where I do a clear line BD kind of Hergé
Oh,
style
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
comic where I just go into straight, clear line and clear colors.
Do you
But
know?
then I'll switch it into my regular thing and then go to a World War II kind of a comic from the 80s with Ben-Day dots and
It's
everything,
amazing.
black and white, stuff like that. Like spreads like this. And then I'll switch it again and I'll go into just a straight like kind of superhero thing.
Yep.
And so you just kind of like keep the inspirations, keep just make it fun. Like
Yep.
whatever
Make it fun.
whatever you want to do, you do.
Do you know? First of all, I'm going to show you guys what I picked up this week from
Yeah.
my local comic store, New Dimension Comics here in Butler, PA.
Nice.
Um, Justice League Unlimited by Mark Wade.
Oh, nice.
Right.
I'm really
Who drew
enjoying
that? Who drew that? That
that. Is
Justice.
drawn by Dan Mora.
I was saying Dan Moore is
Oh,
rocking it,
cool.
man.
I am really enjoying Jeff Lemire's JSA.
Oh wow. He's drawing
Everybody,
that too. He's drawing and
no,
writing.
says Vasquez. I'm not sure who that is. Somebody relatively new, but it's a very, nice looking book. Here's one that I'm excited to check out. This is Bug Wars by Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar.
Oh yeah, he was talking about
All
that.
right. Oh,
Then there's this guy that people seem to
absolutely.
like a lot,
Okay.
and I've
I'm
actually
not.
enjoyed Absolute Batman. And I picked this up because it had Major Disaster in it.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
There's the only reason why I'm picking up.
Can I just say, as that's Action Comics he just showed,
Yeah.
I freaked out for a second because I realized that the DC created a character named Major Disaster, right? Is that been a while? Is that been around for a while or no?
Yeah, he's an old Green Lantern, Silver Age Green Lantern
Okay,
villain.
so I must have done my due diligence because I have a character named General Disaster, and it should have been Major, and I know me, so I probably wrote Major, looked it up, found out
Oh, wow.
can't do it, so named him General. But now I have other characters. This is in COVID Cop, so I luckily I'm not messing with the copyrights here.
Right.
I do want to say, though, going to the idea of appointment comics, and I think Mahdi even said, we don't really follow the comics as much as we follow the creators. I have, it's buried, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd pull them out and I'd show. When I went to New York in December, I stopped at JHU Comics in Staten Island, spoke to Nick and Ron Hill and Nick Purpura, and Nick put into my hands something I'm always looking for, which is Rich Tommaso comics. I will buy any comic by Rich Tommaso. And he's doing this thing now. It's like an anthology, kind of like what Mahdi's doing. Just, instead of an anthology spread out over a couple of different comics, he's doing an anthology that's interconnected within the comic. It's very Adrian Tomine, like Optic Nerve, but it's rich and it's so good. And I swear I will show everyone next week or the next show that we do. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing a show next week right now, but I get excited when I see a new Rich Tommaso comic. So
great, yeah.
No, Rich
there's
is
your
great.
observation.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I love that. And to finish up just one thing, like, because I didn't finish up the awards thing. I've actually won awards, and it's always cool to get an award, but it's what do you do with it? Sure. I'm not going to sit and stare at it, So how can you galvanize something with it, which is what I think actually what awards ultimately are supposed to do, right? Like when you're saying nominations, Vito, is the award. I agree. The minute you get named with 4 to 9 other people, whatever it is, people are like, who's that? And they look for you because somehow you got some kind of nod.
It's a justification that you're in the same breath as, let's say, for example, I'd get nominated as a writer. I'd be in the same nomination as a Mark Waid or Scott Snyder or a Jeff Johns. These are guys that I admire, who I'm friendly with. And like, why wouldn't I want to be mentioned in the same name as them? I don't. Like that's the win. The win is
the win right there.
The guilt by association, sort of.
And you know what? And then on the indie level, where it's like I ain't gonna be on no pedestal. There's the awards that I get, for example, I had a fan, a reader named Trevor Hazelwood, who created the helmet of my character and came as a cosplay. For me, that was an award. And most recently, there's this very talented bookbinder by the name of Andrew Boys, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, Andrew, if that's not. Optics Binding is his name on thing. And he took the 10 issues of
Steel Street. That's wonderful.
Wow.
And he bound them. He took my covers and he made this beautiful book where he took 400 pages of my comics and just bound them beautifully in a book.
That's amazing.
On the underground, these are the awards you get,
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Recognition from peers and other artists of different
I had a cosplayer come up to me at Baltimore dressed as one of my lesser known characters from Stray, like one of the supporting characters. And the best thing about it was Sean Isaacs, who is my co-creator on Stray. He lives in South Africa. He just so happened to be in Baltimore that year.
No way.
So there's the 3 of us, and there's a picture, and my daughter, she had put out her first comic that year. She was about 6 years old. So the 3 of us and the cosplayer in a picture, to me, is like you said, that's the award. But can I say something? And I think this is as great as an endorsement as I can give anyone. Every time you pull out one of your books, I'm like, I gotta buy that. Like it's so insane. Like, stop showing me stuff.
Well, this one I just released.
Oh God!
Oh, there's another one.
This one is drawn by another artist. This is Anya Driffel. Anya Driffel. So she on drawing duties, and I wrote and colored it.
That's amazing.
That's beautiful.
That looks really good.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely book, and it's a different style, but still within the same aesthetic. And so, but after this, send me I'll send you some.
Well, Vito, you have to learn how to draw again because he ain't gonna let you write his Zuperverse.
I'm the only.
but I'll tell you this: the one example I can give of I never had anybody cosplay my characters or anything, but I had a startling moment when I was at a Baltimore Comic-Con early on, and this guy comes up to me and he's wearing a T-shirt that says Dean Haspiel fucked my mother. And I'm looking at this dude like, could he be my son? Like, and then my second thought was, am I on candid camera? Like, so I started looking for a video camera somewhere. And then I got freaked out. Like I went from it was funny to like, yo, this guy's crazy, right? Like what's going on? And then it turned out because I saw him like, and then I don't even know what happened. I probably blacked out or something and woke up and he was gone. But I did see like a day later, he was messing with some other artists and he had another shirt on with their name saying the same thing. So I think it was just him pranking people, but it was startling, man.
You know,
that or his mother was a loose one.
There you go.
let me tell you something. If I know anything about Mahdi after this conversation tonight, I know this much. Had he been at the table with you at that moment, he would have whispered in your ear, "You got to start making shirts that like that."
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And selling those shirts.
Totally.
Dude,
I'd be like, you gotta go date some mothers,
for
right?
real. Missed opportunity. All right,
Yep.
Mahdi, I got to give you the customary,
Oh,
you know, it won't come out in the video. It will come out in the audio. Here's the flush.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, beautiful. Oh,
just like diarrhea.
you know what? Exactly. I was gonna say, from diarrhea to getting flushed, I think this is the highlight of my
Get
career, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahdi. We're gonna
Thanks,
put your
Mahdi.
links for everybody to see. This
Yeah,
is
thank you,
this
fellas.
is probably our longest conversation, and it was a pleasant one. I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Oh man, let's do it again sometime. Honestly.
Please.
Thanks,
Thank you.
fellas.
All right, everyone. Yay, yay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.